Hi, my name's Simon from CramTheExam.com and welcome to week 11, day 1 of your 12-week course to get you ready for your FCE CAE or Matura Advanced exam. It's Monday today, which means that we're going to have a look at writing. So what are we going to have a look at today? Well, in the first 5 weeks or the first 5 Mondays of this course, what I did was I pointed you in the right direction of fantastic online resources to help you get ready or get used to the structure that you need to know for every question, some example language that you can use in that structure, and give you the outline of how to answer the question correctly. Then for the second 5 weeks, from week 6 to 10, I did some plans for each writing task. So I put that theory, those ideas, into practice to show you what a plan might look like and how that if you practice your plan, you'll get better and faster and you'll create a good plan in a very short period of time that answers all of the elements of the questions, which are so important. So we've had a look at what the question is, we've had a look at how to prepare for the question, we've had a look at what makes up the question, we've had a look at the most important things that you need to know. So what we're going to do in these last 2 weeks is show you how the examiners will approach your writing. Why am I showing you what the examiners look at? Well, for 2 good reasons. Firstly, so hopefully you'll begin to understand what the difference is between a very, very good answer and a not so good answer, to make sure, of course, that you aim towards the good answer and include all of those things. And you'll also see how everything that we've had to look at and everything that we've been practicing in the past 10 weeks is reflected in what the examiner sees, which is the most important thing. So the things that I've been showing you in the first 10 weeks are not just completely unrelated aspects and not what I think makes good writing, but it's based on what the examiner is looking for, and that's the key thing. So go back to those videos, have a look at them again, understand what the messages are, and then when you have a look at this video, you'll see how those messages are reflected in the marking guide. That's why they're so important. But the second thing is so that you can then understand yourself where your weaknesses are and where your strengths are. So with the time that's remaining, because I guess that a number of you will be doing exams fairly shortly, not to worry about improving your strengths. Your strengths are your strengths. But identify your areas of weakness and ask yourself, what can you do to improve your areas of weakness to make sure you've got the best possible chance at getting the highest marks. So, let's get started. Okay, so what is this table behind me? This table is taken from the FCE Handbook for Teachers. So for the Cambridge exam, for the FCE, for the CAE, for all the other Cambridge exams, the teachers get a handbook which is full of information to help us teachers teach you students in order so that you have the best chance of getting the highest marks possible. And these examiner guides, if you want to call them that, are part of the handbook, and this is exactly what I'm showing you here. And it shows you how your writing is broken down from the point of view of assessment. So you've got the examiner's got the question, the examiner's got your answer, and the examiner has got this thing behind, oh, not that way, this thing behind me. So let's break it down and see how your answer is marked. So first of all, let me turn on my pen. First thing you can see here is that there are 5 bands, or 6 bands. Band 0, which is rubbish. Unfortunately, you failed completely and utterly, but of course, none of you are going to get that, so there's no need to worry. But we do want to concentrate on band 5, which is the highest band for your writing. And you can see that your writing is broken down into 4 areas: content, communicative achievement, organization, and language. Okay, so what is content, communicative achievement, organization, and language? Well, let me tell you. Let's move this across if I can, or let's move this across behind me. Oh, there we go, perfect. And let me just get rid of my marks because they won't be needed here. There we go. Okay, so above my head you can see these assessment scales. Content. Content focuses on how well a candidate has fulfilled the task. In other words, if they have done what they are asked to do. So, if you're doing an essay and you haven't written an essay, you're not going to do very well on the content. If you've written an essay but you've not underlined the question properly to identify the things that you've been talking about, you're not going to do very well on the content, which is why underlining is so important. And so content focuses on exactly that. Have you done what you are asked to do? Did you write the format that you were meant to write? Did you include all of the things that you had to include? And does the content of your answer reflect the question? Which is kind of three different ways of saying the same thing. But this is why it's so important to know the structure of what it is that you're trying to write and to underline the question text to make sure you include that information. Now, you might think, as you've probably thought if you've watched my videos, underlining is such a waste of time. It's really easy. La 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 la. Well, I've been marking writing exercises for the last couple of weeks for different people who have been sending them in through my their writing exercises in through my website. And I can tell you now, if it was easy, all of these people would be getting fantastic marks on content, but they are not, because they are not identifying the things correctly. Or if they identify the things correctly, the issues they have to talk about, they're not talking about them in the way that they should be talking about them in their answer. So this means that the planning part of their writing, the bit that you should write at the beginning, is not being done well enough. If it was easy, everyone would be getting top scores on content, but people do not. It's a skill you have to practice. Communicative achievement focuses on how appropriate the writing is for the task and whether the candidate has used the appropriate register. So if you're writing a proposal, if you're writing a report, if you're writing an informal letter, if you're writing a review, whatever it might be, make sure your register is correct and make sure your vocabulary reflects that register. So informal vocabulary in what should be formal register will not be marked very well for communicative achievement. Let's go back and get rid of that line. Organisation. Organisation focuses on the way the candidate puts together the piece of writing. In other words, if it's logical and it's ordered. This goes back to our planning stage. This goes back to underlining the question. So if you've underlined the question and if you've created a good plan based on the structure for that question, it will automatically help you in terms of being logical and in terms of being coherent. Because in your plan, you will go through this. I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about this, then I'm going to talk about this. And in your plan, you might decide to use some linkers and transitions. So you might think, okay, I'm going to put in a however here, a but here, and a further here, or you might, and so on, so on. So that planning process is really important from the point of view of organisation. The last thing the examiner wants to see is an arrow going to the top of the page, including in a paragraph which you forgot to include, which just shows you haven't done the planning part properly, and the examiner will already start to think, if the planning isn't done quite well, if the planning isn't done very well, what about the rest of the writing? So it makes the rest of your writing appear in a negative light. Language focuses on vocabulary and grammar. This includes the range of the language as well as how accurate it is. So are you using the correct vocabulary? Are you using the correct collocations? Is the grammar good? Is the grammar appropriate for what it is that you're trying to say? And so on, so on. So we're going to have a look at that in a bit more detail as we go through the chart. So let me get rid of this. And I'll bring the chart back across. Here we go. Okie dokie, right. So let's get the pen back up. So let's have a look at band 5. Let's just go straight for the top and see what you have to do for band 5. 1. All content is relevant to the task. Target reader is fully informed. Now, the target reader is the person that you're writing to. That will be identified in the question. And the question is he fully informed or she fully informed? If you have included all of the points in the question in your answer correct in a relevant way, the target reader is fully informed because you've included everything that you've got to include. If you've missed bits out because you haven't included it in the planning and you haven't underlined it, then the target reader is not fully informed. And you might get down here, for example, question 3, minor irrelevancies and or omissions may be present. So in other words, you might be talking about things which are not relevant, things which you've forgotten about. Target reader is on the whole informed, so mostly informed, but not completely. And here, all the way down to number 1, you've included irrelevant information, you've misinterpreted the task. In other words, you've written about what it is that you think you have to write about, but you haven't answered the question correctly, and the target reader is minimally informed, so the target reader doesn't know what the target reader is meant to know. 1 mark. So this is strongly related to the planning process, and you're going to get bored of me saying plan, 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 but this is why the planning process is so important. Communicative achievement uses the conventions of the communicative task effectively to hold the target reader's attention and communicate straightforward and complex ideas as appropriate. So, in other words, uses the conventions of the communicative task. In other words, this is saying, if it's an essay, you've written an essay. If it's a report, you've written a report. If it's a review, you've written a review, which means that you have to know the structure for what it is that you're writing about. If you're writing an essay, but you present it in the form of a report, you have not used the convention of the communicative task. Because the question says write an email, write an email. If the if the task says write an email and you've written a report, you've not written the correct thing. So, first thing to think about, effectively hold the target reader's attention. So you've used language which interests the reader. And if you go back to Rubens Valero, which is the website which I've linked to all throughout my videos, it says on that website and on others, use interesting information to grab the reader's attention, whether it's rhetorical questions, whether it's making up data, whether it's coming up with statistics. It doesn't have to be factually correct. What it does have to do is interest the reader and communicate straightforward and complex ideas as appropriate. So straightforward ideas would be basic ideas. Complex ideas would be responding to complex issues which you create in response to the things that you have to include. So, for example, if it says you have to include 3 different things, I don't know, it could be find out information about this, find out when it happens, for example, it could be a letter, then you can write about that in a straightforward way, and you can write about that in a complex way as well. And the most important thing is it's as appropriate. So you've got to make it relevant to what the question is asking you. If we have a look here, band number 1 uses the conventions of the communicative task in a generally appropriate way. So it looks something like an email, it looks something like a report, and you communicate straightforward ideas. Straightforward ideas, as I said, are the basic ideas which are generally communicated in simple language. So you can see there's a clear difference between band 1 and band 5. Organisation of the text. Text is organised and coherent using a variety of cohesive devices and organisational patterns to generally good effect. What the hell is all that about? Well, let me enlighten you. Let's quickly scoot across here. Let's just get rid of that for a start. Let's quickly scoot across, and I'm going to move this on top of our previous information. And this is the breakdown of organization. So what are linking words? Because here, let me just move this across a little bit. Here we go. It says, or rather, band 5. Text is well organized and coherent. It means well organized and makes sense. It's logical. If it's coherent, it's logical. It makes sense. Using a variety of cohesive devices. Okay, so what are cohesive devices? Cohesive devices refers, and I'm looking, in case you're wondering what I'm reading this bit here. Cohesive devices refers to more sophisticated linking words and phrases. Moreover, it may appear as a result, as well as grammatical devices such as the use of red reference pronouns, substitution. There are two women in the picture. The one on the right refers to one of these women, so uses of substitution there. And ellipsis. The first car he owned was a convertible, the second a family car. Ellipsis would be the removal of repeated information. So the second car was a family car, so ellipsis there removes the car. So you're using advanced grammar and advanced linking words. Now, as you know, or as you will see if you've seen my previous videos, I talk a lot about linking words in the form of developing a discussion, particularly pros and cons, where we're using contrast linkers to create that discussion. So you want to use these discourse markers, these linkers, these transitions as much as you can. And of course, the transitions perform different functions. For example, we use transitions to signpost. So firstly, secondly, thirdly, this first, then, next, etc., etc. So they order your writing. So that's what cohesive devices is. And organizational patterns. Organizational patterns refers to less explicit ways of achieving connection at the beginning, but between sentence level and beyond, arranging sentences in climactic order, the use of parallelism, and a rhetorical question to set up a new paragraph. So this is basically saying how the document flows from start to finish. Now, if you're writing a report or anything with subheaders, then this is quite easy to do because the subheaders organize everything in a logical way. When you're writing an essay or a letter, then you've got to think about how the paragraphs connect to each other. So it's not just paragraph 1, paragraph 2, paragraph 3, but it's how paragraph 1 might link into paragraph 2 and how that links into paragraph 3 and how that links into the conclusion. So you're trying to create that flow through the whole document from start to finish. And this, of course, makes the document a lot easier to read when you include this. But if we have a look back at band 1, which is down here, text is connected and coherent using basic linking words and a number of cohesive devices. So for band 1, it talks about linking words. So these are cohesive devices, but these are simple cohesive devices which are used more often. So these can be and, but, and because, first of all, finally. So cohesive devices are, you might think of them as more advanced forms of linking words, whereas if you just use basic linking words, you're going to get band 1. If you're going to use advanced cohesive devices, you're going to get band 5, or at least get closer towards band 5. So this is why it's really important in your plan to start thinking about the cohesive devices that you can use. And once again, if you go to Rubens Valero, those websites which I've suggested in previous videos, he's got lists and lists of these that you can learn. If you're not familiar with them, or if you want to know what these things are, go check out that website and the other websites from weeks 1 to 5, and you'll see a wide range of cohesive devices and organizational patterns that you can use. Okay, let's go back to our chart, to have a look at language last of all. Band 5, it says, uses a range of vocabulary, including less common lexis vocabulary appropriately. So use the vocabulary well, it fits. Uses a range of simple and complex grammatical form with control and flexibility. So you're using simple grammar and more advanced grammar as well. Occasional errors may be present, but do not impede communication. So you can make mistakes. Not so much with the simple ones, simple grammar. I wouldn't make mistakes with the simple grammar, but making mistakes with the advanced grammar is forgivable as long as it doesn't stop the target reader from understanding what it is that you're trying to say. So if you're using grammar and you make a real pig's ear of it, and the reader doesn't know what you're trying to say because the grammar is such a mess, you are impeding or stopping communication. If you make a small grammar mistake and I still know what you're talking about, then everything is fine. If we have a look at band 1 behind me, let me just make myself a little bit smaller so you can see this. Not that one, I'm looking at that one. Oh, I'll move myself across. There we go, that'd be easier that way. Uses everyday vocabulary generally appropriately, while occasionally overusing certain lexis, so this is repeating vocabulary. Uses simple grammatical forms with a degree of control. So band 1, no advanced grammar. Band 5, lots of advanced grammar, or some advanced grammar. While errors are noticeable, meaning can still be determined. This is basically saying is the reader can understand what you're talking about, but with difficulty. Whereas this one is that the band number 5, it's the reader can understand what's going on very well, even though you've made a few mistakes. So that's the difference between band 1 and band 5. So now that you've had, now that you know what's going on, and let me just move myself back across. There we go. Now you can see what the examiner looks at when the examiner is looking at your questions. Then you can ask yourself, where are my weaknesses? Where are my strengths? What can I do? Do I know the structures for all of the writing questions? Do I know, are my planning skills good enough? Have I got a good knowledge of linking devices and cohesive devices? Have I got, how good is my grammar? Am I confident with simple grammar forms? Do I know any advanced grammar forms? And if I do know them, how confident am I with them? Can I use them in a number of different ways? So when I'm thinking advanced grammar forms, don't freak out and think that this is crazy grammar. This is just stuff like second and third conditionals, passive forms, using relative pronouns in the correct way, using relative clauses. That is advanced. That's what we don't want to see is just simple grammar structures. So present simple, present continuous, present simple, sentence. That is too. It's not good enough for this level. What we need to see is connections between the sentences. We need to see a variety of grammar, active form, passive form, second conditional, third conditional. So, and these are things, of course, that you can practice, not just in terms of practicing the rules, but practicing developing contexts in which you can use them. And if you have a look at my videos from weeks 6 to 10, you'll see how I create context to use advanced grammatical forms. And there we go. Easy peasy lemon squeezy, isn't it? Band 5, everyone should be able to get that. Of course, it's not that easy. It requires lots of practice. It requires you to use your knowledge in the correct way. And of course, you need always a bit of luck. But I think it's really important for you to see how examiners approach your writing and how different that is to having your writing marked by teachers. I know when I was teaching, starting my teaching career and working and marking people's writing exercises, I would just look at them and think, it's not too bad, it's okay, you've made a few errors and so on. And my feedback as a result wasn't very good, and certainly from the point of view of passing the exam, not very effective. However, the feedback now is based on this, the table that you just saw, and based on the types of skills that this table is looking for. So feedback from you won't get feedback from the exam, but the way that the exam is marked is it might be quite different from the way that your teacher marks your writing. And so I think it's important to open your eyes a little bit and see that before you do the exam. If you have any questions at all about the way that the writing is marked, I'm not an examiner. I'm a teacher with quite a lot of experience, so I'll help you out as best that I can, but nothing that I can say can ever be the golden rule or the rule, but hopefully based on my experience it's somewhere in that general direction. So if you leave a comment below or have a question, then I'll do my best to answer it and hopefully put you in a better position before you do your exam. If you can get hold of the FCE handbook, which is easy to find on the internet, just go to Google, type in FCE or First Handbook Cambridge Exam, and you'll find it. And it's also got lots of writings which have been marked, bearing this table, the table that we've looked at, in mind, so you can see how the examiners approach writing tasks in the handbook, and that as well might be useful. But as I said, if you have any questions at all, leave them below and I will get back to you. Tomorrow is Tuesday. Oh, hang on a second, before I talk about Tuesday, let's talk about the things that I would like you to do. I almost forgot that, didn't I? It's week 11, so I'd like you to have one more look at the essay questions. So I want you to have a look at these questions over my shoulder. There is a free online writing exercise for you to do below as well if you want to practice your essay skills. So have a look at weeks 1 and week 6 for my videos on essays and how you should do, and the information that might help you in terms of doing your essay questions. If you have joined my website, CramTheExam.com, or if you want to have your writing marked, then please join my website, CramTheExam.com. The information is in the video description below, and you can send me as much writing as you like. I'll mark it for you and I'll get it back to you with my feedback about how you can improve your writing to get you ready for your English exam. Okie dokie. This time I will tell you about tomorrow. Tuesday is listening day, so I'll be back again tomorrow with some listening exercises. So I'll see you then.